who are the ultimate picks at each position for NRL Fantasy. Welcome back. I'm Longy. This is Biz, and we are here to talk to you about our top 5 players at each spot. Biz, we're starting off with hooker. Is it a position you're excited about this year or a bit precautious about?
Yeah, bit odd about the hooker position this year.
Hmm.
Usually, hookers are where it's all at. Usually stack, the old days of Cam Smith and Robbie Farah. And then we had, Cook and Grant average 65 or 60 odd last few years. Last year it was kind of iffy, but this year I think a couple of good options exist, but not a very deep position for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's a spot where if you do invest, you could have a big pod though, right? So you could take a move that no one else is taking. Everyone's jumping on similar guys. So we'll go through that. We both have a pod in our list too. I'm going to start with my number one spot, and it's Connor Watson. This one's pretty straightforward. So 11 games starting at hooker. When he gets over 60 minutes, it's a 57.7 average, and he's priced at a 49, so you're getting 8 points of value there.
Yeah, I don't have much more to add to that. I think Connor Watson's probably going to be the number one pick hooker, assuming he gets spotted there. I know he's only available as mid right now, but for everyone asking, it generally works that if he's named at 9 following the first week of team lists, he'll be available in that position. So I think he's probably going to be the unanimous number one at the number 9 position. On the next one, we kind of diverge a bit, Longy. I'll go first. So I had Mamouzelos, and I say Mamouzelos with no confidence whatsoever. I think you have him one spot lower than me, but I just think that starting position in a pretty fruitful team, I'm not expecting much from him. He's priced pretty close to base. I think he'll average 35, 40. The question is, I'm not that sold on the talent, and I do think Humphreys on the bench there is threatening. They've got Havili who can play at hooker. He didn't look great in the preseason to date. I think you have to have him. I think it's a case you don't overthink it. At that price, in this position, you take him, but then I wouldn't plan my squad as him as my starting hooker and go cheap otherwise. So he's my number 2, but not very certain on it.
Yeah, he's a bit dicey. So he's very much a fantasy case rather than passing the eye test. I had a few stats here. So when he did start at hooker, he averaged 50. So what was it? It was 50.3 in 3 games, and when he played 50 plus minutes, it was a 41 average. So fantasy pedigree is pretty good, but the real life talent and the challenge on his role with Jamie Humphreys and a few other guys is definitely there. I'll jump to the next spot here then. So my number 2 is Harry Grant. And again, this one's super straightforward. I'm going for historical pedigree here. So last year, Harry Grant was at a 54.6 average. Previous years before that, I'm going to read them out: a 58, a 61, a 62, a 62, right? So that's 4 years in a row where he was around that 60 mark, which means priced at a 54, there's about 6 points of value there. You throw in the fact that the Storm should be good this year. They've got all their playmakers back, and I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities for him, especially with Otoka Manu running through the middle. So I'm hyped on Harry Grant. I think we're not going to get him this cheap again, and he's going to be in my side most likely.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with all the analysis. The only reason I didn't have Harry Grant as my number 2 is that Connor Watson, I think, is locked into my side. And will I double into Watson into Grant? I'm probably not sure. I think a Watson into Mamouzelos as a cheapie is a combination that I'm more likely to run. But 100% agree that Harry Grant is a solid chance to being the number 1 fantasy scoring hooker at the end of the year. And the other thing I just want to remind you is that he came out himself last year saying that, with Jerome Hughes having such a good year and Eli Katala, etc., his job last year was just to get the ball to them as quick as possible. So this year we might see more of the old style Harry Grant, where he's running a lot more and playmaking himself. The next one we're both unanimous on this is Cory Paix. Now, this is an odd one because, like Mamouzelos, if he starts at 9, he's not going to score as well. He's a bit of a stinky scorer, very low PPM. I think he's played 4 games as a starting 9, averaged about 60 minutes for only about a 32 average. So it's not a high PPM. He does look much improved. He did win the Queensland Cup Hooker of the Year last year, if I'm not mistaken. The only problem with him is that even if he wins the 9, they've got Smoothie, they've got Billy Walters, the incumbent, and they've also got Ben Hunt, who can play the 9. So it could be a case where you have him for a couple of weeks, he doesn't go so well, and he's out of your side. He hasn't earned cash. Longy, I know you've done quite a bit of analysis onto him. What else have I missed there?
Yeah, I think a lot of the hype for Moza has just jumped across to Paix without being justified. So people are just thinking there's a spot at Brisbane at hooker. and they're forgetting that Billy Walters still exists, and he's not out. He's not a disastrously bad player or anything like that, right? So he's going to steal some minutes. So on the numbers here, 4 games, 57 minutes as a starter. He averaged 32.5 in 57 minutes, and they're generous minutes too, right? That includes a 17-point game in 38 minutes, and on the breakdown of the scoring, it's an average of 37 tackles for 32.5 points. So bit of a disaster in terms of attacking production. Even when he gets decent minutes, so say that 43-minute average in games over 40 minutes, it's a 27 average. So for me, he's not a guy that I'm targeting aggressively. And unless I'm desperate for cash cows, I'm probably not going to jump onto him. I'm going to jump to my number 5 guy, and we've got a bit of a split here, which is really exciting for us. So I'm going through to Reece Robson. And this is just a real pod play, right? Because at hooker, you've only got one starting hooker. So to pick 5, it's quite a few guys. Robbo's a guy you can jump onto if you don't believe in all these other options. He's priced at a 49, but historically he starts super hot. So the thing I've seen with Robson is the last 2 years, he started with a 55.8 average over the first 5 games and a 61.8 average. So if he can start hot again, that running game is good. He doesn't miss as many tackles in the first month of footy. He could be a guy that starts well for you and hits some value and hits some of those 70-plus scores like he has in previous years. Thing to note here is that he's not a guy you want to trade in during the season. So finishes over the last 2 years, final 8 games, the average has been 42 and 39. So starts hot, really falls off. If you're interested in Robson at all, you start with him, but you do not trade him at any point in the year.
It's really interesting analysis, Long, because I think that playing up in North Queensland, where it's hottest at the start of the year, you're probably most fatigued and not putting in the hard yards at the start of the season. So really interesting to see that. And I've definitely noticed that Robson always does start hot, and then kind of the post-Origin period, even before he was an Origin player, he'd fade out. Really good one there. My 5th one is actually Damien Cook. Now, he would be a massive pod this year. The thing with Damien Cook is, my view is when clubs sign marquee players, they do so with the intent to really feature them. And it's the same as you'd see in the NFL. Like, when Derrick Henry and Barkley get traded to new teams, like the quotes that they're potentially washed or getting old. In a good environment and them being a focal point, things can change pretty quickly. Now, I think Damien Cook's been brought in for a reason. They've given him the position. They've come in and made him a co-captain, the number 9 spot. They did this while Little had a breakout year, arguably. So Little played well last year, but they went out and still chased Cook, and they've got him. I think Cook still plays big minutes. I don't know if he plays 80, but I think he plays a hybrid of hooker and lock, and we've seen how fruitful that is for another old Dragons hooker, Cameron McInnes, when he sort of played that hybrid role. Because at hooker, you're racking up most of your points through tackles, but at lock, you're suddenly opening up that running game as well. So if there's a hybrid role there, I think there's a chance that Damien Cook can go back to his old historical 60-65 average if he gets the 70 to 80-minute role. The only reason I have as low as 5 is that there is risks that, Little gets more game time and they don't play Cook as much as I'm thinking they will, and he plays 50, 60 minutes, and then you're paying a premium for someone who's not going to give you what you want. But I think there is a chance that he can average as high or higher than Harry Grant this year and close the year at 60 to 65 average yet again. I think there's definitely still energy in the tank there.
I mean, he's done it before. And he proved at South last year that he can play, multiple positions, can move into lock. I just worry about the fact that they're acquiring so many guys in the middle. So they brought Gula in. There's talk of Clemmer. There's a bunch of guys coming in. There's a lot of minutes. They're going to be eaten up by guys like Eisenhuth, Jack DeBellin. That concerns me a bit in that I just can't see him playing the full 80 minutes, but I cannot deny that he has the potential to go 60 plus. Do you have any other honorable mentions here for hooker? Like for me, this is pretty much the exhaustive list. You could make, fun cases for Reed Marnie starting hot or Jeremy Marshall-King or after a bit of a down year last year, but really I'm not going outside of this group.
Yeah, I'm probably thinking of 2 other people. Well, sorry, I'm thinking about one. Yep. I'm not thinking about the second one. The first one is Brendan Hands.
It's Aaron Clark.
No, it's not Aaron Clark. But the first one is Brendan Hands. I don't know if that's worse or better. Now, he, like Cory Paix, like not a huge PPM, but when he gets 80 minutes, he does average about 43, 44. Now, I don't really love the hooking talent in Parramatta, but I think that judging by how the preseason's unfolding and reports at training, Hands is kind of in that number one spot. Now, I know Lussick is named at 9 this week, but Lussick also came on in garbage time last week. So I think it's a chance of just giving him a run where he didn't really get a chance to run with the boys last week.
Yeah.
Lussick was a third hooker off the bench. Third hooker on the field for Parramatta last week because Riley Smith came on before him. So it's not a good look for him. So I think if Hands gets position, I think if Josh Papali is the 14, I don't think they're going to slot him into hooker. He'll kind of just be an emergency utility, might roam around the field a bit. So I think there's a chance Hands gets 80 minutes. He's one to watch over team lists and over the next couple of weeks. And then the last one is, now I'm not doing this myself, but I've seen, I think SC Whisperer is high on this guy, but Phoenix Crossland.
Stop it.
I ain't having a bar
End
of
it there.
I ain't
End
doing
it
it. I ain't doing it. But apparently Brayley is still being shopped. Crossland is named at 9 this week with Brayley at 14. Now, I don't want to bar him, so I'm not even looking at his statistics. But I'm pretty sure they're decent enough at hooker. I think like a mid-40s average in big minutes. Is he going to get big minutes at hooker? No chance, because while Brayley's on the bench, he's still going to play a lot.
Yeah.
He could be a 40, 50-minute guy. But for those who are Knights fans or just feeling like they want to throw in the towel early in the season, you can start with Crossland.
Oh, that buy in round 4 and so many other Newcastle players on these lists, because we're doing every position here, right? And there's a bunch of Knights on there. It's... I get the stat case. I just don't see it personally.
I'm not recommending it. I'm just
it's worth
people
raising.
mentioning it. And I'm really trying to talk you out of it.
Aaron Clark is the other one I'll throw in here. So Aaron Clark, he had better minutes in the second trial game. Look, I think Dylan Walker's going to eat up more minutes, but there's no denying that Aaron Clark, when he gets the minutes, is a fantasy monster. So if he gets the minutes at lock, Aaron Clark will be fantastic for fantasy. I personally don't think he will. So I'm not saying do it, but keep in mind.
Now that you've mentioned Aaron Clark, I have one that I think I will run, and I haven't put him in my top 5.
You're talking about Jazz Tevaga, aren't you?
I'm talking about Jazz Tevaga.
Yes, I knew
it. He could go into, if he get named a hooker for week 1, like he is for this week's trials, and he's been apparently in the closed sessions against the Manly and the Dragons have been doing this closed session, like scrimmage over the last couple of years, where they run pretty hard at each other, and Jazz Tevaga was playing as a 9. Now, Jazz Tevaga is a fantasy beast when given the minutes.
Oh, yeah.
Even last year, I think when he played 40 minutes, he'd average 45, 47. Like, he's a Fafita, Terrell May, like +1 PPM type guy.
Yeah, yeah.
If he's there at 9 and he moves into the middle for a bit, he's going to rocket probably close to 2 or 3 for me. So the only reason I haven't mentioned him is he's not yet available at hooker, and it's not fully clear if that's the role he's going to play. But I don't know, Longy, what do you reckon? You high on him or not?
412K is an awkward price. But no, I'm not against it. I mean, I'd probably, if he's starting at hooker, I'd rather him over Paix, for example, because you're going to get some big scores out of him. If he plays well, he'll earn a position in the team as well, following, Lachlan Croker coming back. Croker's not a guy that they're, desperate to give big minutes to, I don't think. And Croker gets hurt all the time. The other thing is the other hookers they have aren't, explosive sort of impact guys you can bring on in the middle or bring on really at hooker to make a difference. So, I could see him being interesting. It would be a serious pod, 0.9% ownership right now. I also think it's hilarious. We've gone, let's do top 5s, and we've now talked about 15 players. So,
no, we've talked about 9. Worth considering.
Yeah.
I mean, I like if Jazz is named at 9, he's going to be my team. So,
yeah. I like that better
I'm saying it.
Simpkin
in my team at 9. Yeah.
People were talking about Simpkin. I wasn't interested in that at all. But Jazz is much stronger. I agree with you there.
100%. I mean, like Simpkin and Gordon, like they clearly don't love them enough to go out and buy a very old forward and play him at hooker where he hasn't played in a long time. So they clearly haven't been winning the position there in preseason.
To tie things up is, who have you got in your side right now at hooker?
Well, when I said unanimous number 1, Connor Watson's in my team. He was my first hooker picked. I've backed him up with Peter Mamouzelos, and I've got Cory Paix as my 2 and 3. I think surely one of them has to be decent, but I don't fully trust them to score that well. So I've gone my boy Jazz as it stands, that pending team list. But like I said, if he's named at 9, he'll get dual position, and I believe in his scoring. So I will have him on my bench.
Shoots right up your list. Okay, for me, it is Connor Watson right now. He's sitting in the middle spot. I've got Harry Grant as well, and then I've got Peter Mamouzelos. I just think Watson and Harry Grant could both be guys that are about 10 points undervalued. So I want to have them both in my team. And I think a bit of depth there too. I just don't trust Cory Paix, and I probably can't take the gamble on Reece Robson. So that's where I'm sitting.
Watson and Grant feed families. That's such a lovely combo up front. You could
OGs.
start really hot. Yeah, I love the old dual
Yeah.
position, like two elite hookers. So
Yeah.
exciting.
Well, that was the year I won. I got on Cam Smith, Robbie Farah super early, and they just
Yeah.
went nuclear. So I tend to be biased towards doing that because of that, but we'll see if it works.
Yeah,
Anyway,
my
guys,
best years were like
yeah,
that too.
yeah, that's our top hookers here. So cheers for jumping on, Beers. Love it when we disagree. And thanks, everyone else. The next video is going to be middle forwards, and we're going to go through each position. So make sure you jump in for that one.